Hello, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us back for another connecting conversation that we have today. I am pleased to be here. I've been away for a while, but I'm back. And it's so great to be back in the routine of things, shall I say. So, in my first podcast back, you would have seen one last week. I hope you've checked that out with one of our previous guests, Milka. But today we have Katie with us, and I am pleased to have this conversation. And today's conversation will revolve all around female entrepreneurship, what that is, what that looks like, some of the challenges, and some of the successes that we have as women entering into the entrepreneurship field. So without further ado, I'll let Katie introduce herself to you all.
So hi, thank you so much for having me, Avelka. And how serendipitous that we met probably about 2 years ago in different careers and different jobs, and now we're doing this together. So this is awesome. So I'm co-founder of Talent Tent. Now we are a HR and recruitment business basically, and we work with startups and scale-ups who are big enough to have people but aren't quite big enough to have that full people team, and we give that full people team experience to our clients.
Amazing. No, thank you for that introduction. And in terms of, I guess, your experience to date and setting out Talent Tent, do you want to tell the audience when you started and why you started Talent Tent for us?
Yeah, of course. So we started thinking about launching Talent Tent in it was November 2021. Myself and my co-founder were both at a little bit of a crossroads career-wise. We'd always worked really well together. We always had the same values about how we think people should be treated in the workplace, and how that much larger organizations have the opportunity to treat people very, very well because they have the resources, in-house people teams, that sort of thing, to treat people very, very well. But startups and scale-ups may not always have the same access to that expertise. So we got our heads together and started sketching out what our business could look like, how it might work for small businesses, whether they even wanted it, and working that through. So we took probably about 6 weeks before we went, yeah, let's do it. Let's go on Companies House. Let's register that business, and went ahead. And the concept behind Talent Tent is that we're a pop-up people team. So we take our tent, pop it up in your business, flexible, can pop up and pop back down again, but to do all of those people activities. And we finally then got to the point where we sort of parted company with our previous jobs and launched the organization. Previously, both of us have always been in-housers. So, we've got backgrounds in media, startups, fintech, insurance, lots of different kind of industries, and lots of those sort of areas where startups are popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's when we sort of took our launch in May 2021. So that was a little bit of an interesting journey. We signed our first client in the first week, which we sort of went, we thought we were going to have sort of a quiet summer doing business development, and then boom, all of a sudden, straight away, we're recruiting, we're doing their HR, we're doing performance development. So it was a really, really exciting time, and it really was quite formative and helped us properly zone in on who we are as a business and what we want to be.
Amazing. Thank you. I knew some of the story, but I didn't know the full extent of it. So thank you for even enlightening me about that. And in terms of, I guess, just to dive in a little bit more, as you as a person within your business and founding your business, what were some of the, I guess, what was your mindset around going onto this journey? Because you've had a career working for different large and small and medium-sized businesses. Why take this leap now? And what was the motivation for you personally?
I think taking the leap really was around, we often refer to the phrase of people are not commodities. And so from that sort of, we're talking about our sort of North Star guiding light as to what we work to is that people are not commodities, and we can really influence how people are treated in the workplace, because the workplace is huge, isn't it? It's a huge part of your life. If you're a full-time worker, it's what you do Monday to Friday, and how that makes you feel can completely impact your relationships and your enjoyment of your personal time. So that if we're talking about from a very values perspective, that's where it came from, was being able to influence the world of work as we know it, from the ground up, and taking everything that we'd learned from our sort of corporate careers and bringing that into the startup world, so that these organizations who will be the absolute powerhouse of the world of work in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that they're starting from a position of being amazing organizations that treat their people really, really well. So that was a big part of it for us, if we're talking like I say, from that values perspective.
Yeah.
Also for me, it's just you gotta try things, haven't you? Like I'm the sort of person who I'm quite sort of excitement seeking, and I'm the sort of person who wants to try things out, wants to go, okay, I've done that, I didn't like it, I liked it, and to have an opportunity to do something a little bit different. So I think we'd have really regretted it if we didn't just go, let's do it. It's a risk, but let's do it. We spoke to our respective partners and they were fully behind us. And do you know what? I do not look back. We've had, obviously we've had our ups and downs where, we're quite a new business. We've had our ups and downs, but I do not look back. I do not crave that corporate career at all. I'm loving having this business, being able to positively influence people's lives. So yeah.
I love that. No, thank you for sharing. And I think it's really important to recognize when it's time to step out and do something different. And, sometimes it's scary. You've never done it before. You don't know what's up against you, but it's that taking that first leap. And I like to think of it as a leap in faith, because eventually it will work out no matter which way, like you rightly said, you've done it, you've tried it. Okay, it worked, it didn't. Good. At least I've done it, and I'm not living with that regret.
And what's the worst that can happen? We get a job.
Yeah. It's never the end of the world. And I think it's definitely one thing that I always encourage people is to just do it, because you're never going to get the time back to redo. We don't get, another chance at life. So you might as well do something with it.
The adventure. Exactly. Yeah.
100%. And I guess with you saying that as well, in terms of, if we hone in on the female aspect and the gender aspect within entrepreneurship, as you know, our podcast and what we do is very much in line in increasing the voices for underrepresented groups and communities. And we've seen within the entrepreneurship, women are rising up to the challenge. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're not, but there are women rising up to the challenge, and more women are getting into the field. But not a lot of these women have the support or the network in taking that kind of leap. So what was it like for you? Did you have a system behind you before, or of other entrepreneurial women, handing the baton? Like for you?
Well, I went into this really naively, in that I thought that obviously corporate life has still got its problems in terms of gender diversity and female representation. Corporate life still has that, but it's definitely being broken down. I went into this so naively, thinking that the entrepreneurial world was the same, and that I felt that I was going to go into this world and it would be full of other women like me who were starting their businesses. And really early on, I came across a statistic about recruitment businesses, which we don't fully fit that, but we're adjacent, and about recruitment companies. That the leadership in recruitment companies is typically not female. Only about 30% female,
Mm.
and these are, the owners and leaders of them. And that really shocked me, because for those of you who are listening, and a few of Elka, I don't know if you've come across this, but the majority of people working in recruitment are women.
Yep.
So what's going on there? And that really shocked me early on. Another thing that shocked me was I started going to networking events and meeting people and walking into rooms of men and going, oh,
Yep.
okay, I haven't done this in a while. And you know what?
Mm.
It's fine. Like, I'll talk to anyone. But it struck me. And then that's what sort of prompted me. Like, I've always been a big advocate of women in the workplace, and I would hope anyone I've ever worked with would say that. But that's when I started going, okay, I actually need to start leaning into this
Mm.
in um in the entrepreneurial world. And that's when I started seeking out networks that were female focused, and trying to find them. And this was my next shock. There is not enough of us female entrepreneur in female entrepreneur networks. And those are them that I did find were, I was struck by the number of women who are still sort of trying to run a business while battling all of the sort of societal structures that hold women back, and being the primary carer for their children, or their elderly parents, or all of these things that are holding women back are much more amplified in the sort of entrepreneurial world. So that's when I started leaning into this and going, okay, I need to not only find these networks, but I also need to start advocating for women. And which is when I started getting involved with a number of different networks. And I don't know if I can mention them. Like, I know one I've referred you to of Alka is Female
Yeah.
Founders Rise, which is awesome. I love it because
Brilliant.
it's so business focused, and but just such a safe female space. It's an awesome network for people who are founding a business and growing a business.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. One little anecdote I'll tell you about raising funds for our business. So we are, we don't have huge amount of funds behind us, but we did raise one fund. But from the institution that gave us money, that I won't name, sent us a letter once they'd sort of closed, the application, which was addressed to Dear Sirs.
Oh.
So that's obviously a standard letter. How many times have they put that one out? And
Mm.
that just tells you everything about who's actually getting funded these days.
Yeah.
Clearly, yeah. So interesting one.
In terms of funding, and that's a whole nother level of
Yeah.
disparity in
Mm.
terms of who provides the funding and who receives the funding. Because and I think I've listened and I've seen some stats around, don't quote me on this, but it was something like 0.5 of female businesses get VC funding, or something as low as that.
Mm.
And I was looking at this stat and I'm just like,
Yeah.
wow, it's just insane, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and I think anybody who is listening to this who is maybe currently in a corporate career would probably have the same shock as you and I do to that.
Yeah.
And if they haven't stepped into the world. But I wouldn't want it to put people off.
No.
Because the thing is, there's loads of statistics out there about how female-led businesses are typically more successful, have a better bottom line, have a happier workforce. So it's not all doom and gloom. And I think the world is switching on to that. And I think the world of funders is switching on to that.
Yeah. And I think the more the more and more we get accustomed and we bring conversations like this to life, we're able to kind of open the gates and allow for understanding, because a lot of it, people are doing things on autopilot. It's the way it's always been done, so we might as well carry on. No issues, no problem.
Mm.
But now there are people who are voicing that, look, I am not getting funding, or I'm not getting this job, or I'm unable to access this X, Y, and Z. And it's now bringing that to life, where we can kind of break down those barriers and those challenges and actually create opportunities. And the great thing that I've seen now is the men are so on board with
Mm.
rising to the
Yeah.
challenge, and supporting women where needed. And I think we can't do this alone. I
Yeah.
think sometimes we think, okay, we need another female or another female network to amplify or elevate us, but it could be those people that have certain privileges despite their background are able to open a door for us. And I think being able to be open-minded about it
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is very important. But I guess in terms of um some of the advice that you perhaps were given or you would give, what would you say?
So just generally starting a business, something that I regret not doing as soon as we even started thinking about it is networking.
Mm,
Like, like I wish I had started going into those rooms full of men, um, right about the time that we started thinking about the business.
mm,
Because when it comes to networking, um, you need when you're building your business, you need so many people. There's very few people who can be a marketer, an accountant, a HR. But like, there's so few people who can actually do that. So you need people, and quite often the people you need are a small business like yours. So the
mm,
first, they're not going to come up on the first page of Google. So,
yeah.
get out there and start building networks, because there's that you're going to have a need.
Mm,
But then secondly, it starts building your personal brand, building your business, getting people to know who you are. And I was definitely late to the party with that.
mm,
I think in terms of women, um, going into business, is be brave, because I feel like it's easy to sort of trot off the doom and gloom and the things that have made me go, "What on earth?"
mm,
But ignore that noise,
mm,
because there needs to be more of us. We're good. Like, we're good leaders. We're good business people. And there needs to be more of us. And when there is more of us, then there's safety in numbers, isn't right? Critical mass, and bring in that balance. And as us women come through and make a bit of money and start investing and invest in other women, and so I think being bold and being brave and getting out there is really, really important. Um,
yeah.
and there's another thing that I think is super important, and that I have taken to saying to other female entrepreneurs, is we need to value ourselves,
Mm,
what we do. And I think women are very prone to undervaluing our services, what we do, what things should cost, being apologetic. Don't do that. And I say it to, and there's, and I'll not name them here, but there's other female businesses that I've said to them, you're not charging enough. Look at
mm,
all the certificates you've got on your wall. You are not charging enough. And
yeah.
I would have to pay more for what you do. So valuing yourself, I think is huge.
Mm,
Um, and finding your tribe.
yeah.
There's networking, and then there's finding your tribe. And if
Mm,
you can find your tribe and find the people who feel like your people, who are going to back you and champion you and support you, that you've got to go out and find those people. And when they're being nice about you, listen. Because things aren't always perfect, and you need those moments of sort of respect and good feedback. But take the rough with the smooth as well.
yeah, no, certainly. And I think, it's really important that we also consider, because there are, just kind of thinking back, there are a lot of women who are eager to do something, or get out the corporate life and, start a business. But I think before it even gets to that stage, there needs to be some kind of problem solution, that solution that you want to bring to a problem. There needs to be that inner passion, because when times get hard and you feel like you want to quit, you need to remember why you started and who you're
Mm,
doing it for. And I think as women, we connect with that. We would connect with that sentiment a little bit more than perhaps our male counterparts do too. I'm not
mm,
to the biological aspect of it, but emotions, we're a little bit more attuned to our emotions. So I think it's definitely listening to your heart, and your gut
mm.
feeling. There's a lot of business is gut feeling. If it doesn't sound right, if it's a little bit fishy, you know not to engage. So just trust your instincts, and I think that goes across the board for everyone in
Oh,
terms
yeah,
of
definitely.
trusting your instincts, when it comes to, because not all business is good business.
No, no, and just this week, we spoke to a potential client, and very early on said, we're not a match. But what we do versus what you're looking for is we're not a match. And
Mm,
and knowing that, and obviously there's the balance of, you've got to have money coming into your business, and there's that balance versus what your guiding light is and what you're looking to achieve. But something we probably took about 6 months to learn was that it's better to do the right things than to do anything.
mm,
And yeah, yeah, that's really important.
yeah. Okay. And in terms of, um, I know with you and talent talent tent, you do have a co-founder, and I just wanted to like delve into that a little bit deeper, because a lot of women in particular, some go solo and create businesses on their own, but then there are other women or other business, people that do it with someone else. So for instance, myself, I have my lovely co-founder Carla. She's been my rock through the very kind of initiation of Cohesia Connect and what that meant, what that was going to mean for us, and what position and trajectory we wanted to go. But in terms of having a co-founder, what has been your relationship, or what has been your experience like? Because
Mm,
again, we don't talk enough about how you come into business with one another.
yeah. So I think this is a really good opportunity to shout out men who support women, because my co-founder is a man. So Luke Richardson, you are awesome. Um, we I don't know how people do it alone.
No.
Um, because we trust each other wholly, and we have a division of responsibilities in business of who does what, and it doesn't mean that neither of us have any idea what the other one is doing,
Mm,
but we take advantage of having two people who are leading this business, who, this is what I do, this is what he does, we communicate daily, we're very honest with each other,
mm,
and without him, I would be so bogged down in, well, if anyone's seen our brand, that's Luke. Like, he's absolutely awesome, and I would be so bogged down with that kind of stuff.
mm,
Uh, yeah, I it's a funny one. I've been talking and networking and things today, and been talking about co-founders and how do you find a co-founder, and
mm,
should it be a friend? Should it be a relative? Should it be just someone you pick off the street? And it's a really tough decision, I think, in
yeah,
choosing a co-founder. And most people say, "Oh no, not a friend, not a friend." Um, but I like to think Luke is my friend, but we did start off as colleagues. Um, but we've been colleagues for about 7 years now. So yeah, that co-founder relationship I think is so important, that you're not alone. Yeah.
yeah. I, I
Um,
I think it's some, going back to my relationship with my co-founder, there are definitely days where, you know, you need that extra bit of motivation. And it's easier when you have someone there to pick you up than trying to dig deep where that motivation is. But also, I think the beauty of having a co-founder, a business partner, whatever you entitle that person who you're journeying with, is, you know, there is always that one gap that perhaps, or one skill that you're missing that that other person can add. And you know, you complement each other in terms of, you know, different requirements, different needs. And I think with my co-founder and I, we've definitely figured out what our weaknesses are as people and as women, and you know, we support each other with that, and we educate each other and we trust each other through that as well. So I think that is, so for me, that's what I value most about that relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And the that having that other person, like you say, to raise you up when you're down and vice versa, we've definitely done that for each other
Mm,
at numerous points. And you're right, it's super super important.
yeah.
I think if I was going alone in this,
Mhm.
um I think mentoring would have to be everything.
Yeah, yeah. Find
Finding
a good mentor.
a good mentor who you can be warts and all with, because with your co-founder you can be warts and all with, but the rest of the time you quite often, you know, go out into the world with your armor on and represent your business in nothing but a positive light.
Yeah.
And if you've got that, if you've got that really trustworthy mentor, I think that that's probably
Mm,
the the way to go if you go in it alone. And mentorship is something that I definitely need to have more of, and that's something I'm seeking at the moment.
yeah.
That outside voice. So I think that's super important. Yeah.
That's so so true. And I think we underestimate mentorship. And you know, it's crazy because within the workplace, in the corporate world, there is a lot of mentorship that does take place. There are mentorship programs, you know,
Mm,
that we work with one another in order to kind of pivot to the next level or the next career step. They do a lot of that within the corporate world, I have to say.
mm.
Then when you go into entrepreneurship, and it's just like, okay, there is no program that is handed to me. You know, I actually have to go out and look for this stuff. It
Yeah.
doesn't, and you know, quite frankly, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. Um, but before we started recording, Avalka, I mentioned to you where I am today.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is something that I'm doing that's free of charge, which is the NatWest Entrepreneur Accelerator Program, which
Mm,
they're dotted throughout the country. And one of the reasons I'm here is to get that outside voice and to get that. You don't quite so much get the mentorship, you get lots of coaching with it, but yeah, I'll be with a cohort of other people who are going to be here to challenge me, give me that outside voice.
mm.
And so yeah, it's day one,
Okay.
so judgment is reserved,
How long
but
is the
so far
program?
it's really
How
good.
long is it? Is it 5 days or
It's
is
a
it
6 month
2 days?
program.
It's a 6 month program.
Yeah,
Okay.
which can extend to 18. But yeah, so it's quite a long program that I'll be going through with a group of other entrepreneurs. And one thing I will say is we're a really gender balanced room, which is really nice to see.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good. And I think it's important to know that you're never alone in this, as much as you feel boxed in into your little bubble and your little you know, interests and stuff like that. You're not alone. There are other people that are pretty much going through the same thing or similar things that you just
yeah,
don't know about, but
yeah,
you'll get through it.
yeah.
um and in terms of just going back to talent tent and you know what you do and the work that you do, can you give us a bit of insight into, you know, with small businesses, we see rising and, you know, coming up with innovative solutions to our current day problems. And as you rightly said, and I think I saw a statistic, you know, a lot of the British economy is from small, medium-sized businesses, about 99% or some, figure like that from what I remember. What, in your opinion, what has diversity look like within those spaces? Because we talk a lot about it within the corporate space, in the large, bigger businesses. Have you noted or have you seen any trends trickling down to those SMEs?
In terms of gender diversity, male versus female split is, I would probably say, sort of 70 male, 30 female, similar to the statistic I used earlier. So, those businesses that are being led and started up by women are out there and they're coming through. But it's certainly not sort of a 50-50 split yet. In terms of other characteristics, protected characteristics, ethnic diversity is limited. And I haven't come across many sort of funded startups who are led by people who aren't white. So I think that's a whole other conversation. And that, whether it's male or female led. And I think that's a whole other conversation as to what's going wrong there. Lots of the other strands of diversity, disability, for example, it's invisible. I don't know. I'm a founder with a disability. I have a hearing impairment, but you wouldn't know that talking to me here now. No, you probably didn't know that.
No,
Yeah.
I actually
didn't. So yeah, I have a hearing impairment, but nobody would know that. So it's difficult to sort of judge on your more sort of invisible characteristics, if you like. My co-founder, he's a type 1 diabetic. You wouldn't know that from looking at him. So it's difficult to comment on that. But when we're talking sort of visuals, it's not. There's issues there as well. I would definitely say, in terms of us and what we do, something that we do baked in is ensuring that we are recruiting for diversity. We do everything that we can when we recruit to ensure that we are writing inclusive adverts, that we're using gender decoders, that we are attracting as wide a range of candidates as we possibly can. We do that. We don't even ask. That's just what we do. And so that's one of our sort of founding principles, and that's important to us. In terms of actually influencing the diversity in the organizations that we work with and their considerations and that kind of thing, obviously we work with their HR and we influence policies, etc., and things like that. But I won't pretend that there's not more that we can do. And I think what you're doing really is really awesome, putting that actual laser focus for startups on diversity and them getting it right from the ground up, and which is a very similar principle to us in terms of treating people well. You were going ground up with, let's have an organization that represents the people that we serve.
Because as you rightly said, and we've said it a couple of times throughout the conversation, these are going to be the businesses that are running 5, 10, 20 years from now. So why not start from, and with Cohesia Connect, we like to use a lot of nature language. So why not start from the root up? And that's taken it even further back in, engaging with school environments, and how can we make sure that we're cultivating the right talent, and how can we be encouraging that talent to go into these institutions. So for us, it's very much a holistic view of how can we really enact change, and how can we really see it in the long term, because a lot of businesses, a lot of D&I work seems very short term. You do it now, you reap the benefits, and you get recognized for it. But the real recognition in my eyes is not the fancy awards or the accreditations. It's what we're going to see in 5, 10, 20 years from now. Are we going to move the needle forward, or are we just going to remain stagnant? And I think that's
sorry, go on.
the real prize, if we were to call it that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Having an initiative and temporarily nudging something in one direction or another, does it
Mm,
stick? When the leadership changes, do these things stick?
yeah.
And so often you see, you know, I'm not going to name them, but some of the more successful startups of maybe the last 5-10 years, they only start really to think about diversity when they maybe got 150 people, and by then you've got a culture, it's ingrained, and it's too late. You've got
Mhm.
a big ship to turn around then.
Yeah.
So yeah, starting from the beginning is it's such a great initiative that you
Yeah.
guys are doing, and it's certainly something that we champion as well and get
Yeah.
behind. Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, our paths would continue to cross because of the work that we do, and um, the nature of what we're both passionate about in kind of driving the mission forward. So I think there's a lot of synergy with Talent Tent and Cohesia Connect.
Mm.
So I'm so glad that we were able to kind of, I guess, meet in the most unconventional ways. And 2 years from now, we're just like in
Yeah.
very different spaces. And I
Yeah.
think that goes to say a lot of the relationships I've had have been very unconventional, even down to my co-founder. That I didn't know her 2 years ago.
Oh,
She popped
right.
up into my life, and it was just like, oh, you do this, I do this, okay,
Yeah.
let's have a further conversation. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting, and for me, those are the relationships I cherish the
Yeah.
most, for sure.
Yeah.
So
You
before
find people, you've got to grab them, haven't you?
oh yeah, yeah. You're not gonna get rid of me now, Katie. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, 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 no.
You're stuck with me for now. So so in terms, as we kind of reflect on what we discussed today, and kind of the nature around female entrepreneurship, small businesses, and kind of the culture that sits around it. In terms of your line of work, what would you like to see change or impacted by what you're currently doing?
Okay. So in my line of work, HR, recruitment, talent people, what I would like to see change, I would like small businesses and startups to stop Googling their HR. Oh, I see it. I see it. So, when you're a business, you hire your accountant, you hire your marketer, but for some reason people Google their HR and they get themselves into trouble. And I've seen it, and I'm not going to go into detail, but I've seen it. So I would like the people. HR is a very dry word, isn't it? We use it because people understand it, and when we talk about our business, but really we're people. That's what we talk about.
Mm,
And I would like people who are huge investment in a business, huge amounts of money going to people, to become front of mind
yeah.
for startup, scale up, small businesses. Some are amazing at it. They really, really think about it, but lots don't. And they only start to think about it when things maybe start to unravel a little bit. So I
Mm,
think that's something I would really love to see out there is when people go through accelerators or speak to business advisors, that they start talking about people. I think
yeah.
that I'd love that. But we have to influence that, and we have to be the people who show the benefits and show, I said quite close to the beginning, that people are not commodities, and that we want to see from the ground up, in terms of the business world, good people practices. So we
Mm,
are here to influence that and show the benefit and to talk to people about it. And I have an ongoing open booking link for founders come spend an hour with me, free of charge, no strings attached. They just come and spend an hour with me because I want to influence that. Start thinking of your people here and now, because that's really important. I think that's something I'd like to see. And if we're talking lofty, if we can get to a point where we are influencing, and that small businesses are starting the revolution with us, and really influencing, what the law looks like, and what actually is considered the bare minimum, not the bare minimum we have now. Let's have a good bare minimum, and start influencing that. If we were talking about a lofty ambition, that's what I want.
I love that. No, that is, and I think it's good to have a lofty ambition, a lofty goal. I don't think that's not achievable whatsoever. And I think the work that you're doing and you will continue to do, from what I've seen, will have a long-term impact, nevertheless. And those businesses do have the opportunity to go in spaces such as policy change, within government, to really turn it around, and I guess make our working world more people focused.
Yeah.
And I think that for us equally here at Cohesia Connect is all about looking at people and hearing people from all aspects, in order to really make sure that everyone's not only feel like they belong somewhere or they feel valued, but people are happy, people are comfortable, because that's what's going to drive business nevertheless. We've known the positive stats around that.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
So,
and in the meantime, do you know what? If we influence people's lives for the better in some small way, I'm happy.
There you go. There you go. And that will be Talent Tent.
Yeah.
That's what everyone will remember. Don't you worry. Well, Katie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming and sitting down with me for a conversation, even though you're at your accelerator course, is it? Is it
Entrepreneur Accelerator Hub? Yeah.
Accelerator Hub. So even though you're there, thank you for taking the time out to speak with me today. Thank you for educating our audience, and hopefully they take a thing or two. And for any small businesses out there, stop Googling your HR. Go to Talent Tent.
Yeah.
Here is the invitation. You heard it here first. Thank you so much, Katie, for your time, and I'm sure we'll get back soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.